Hello everyone and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Ariana Jasmine and today we will be reacting to a Piers panel and it seems like it got really intense. So let's see what happened. Make sure you like, subscribe and comment for more videos like this and let's go.
A month ago, Joe Biden walked stiffly and slowly onto the CNN stage in Atlanta for a debate he thought would save his presidency. Last night, with his closest family huddled behind the camera, he gave what would probably be his final Oval Office address.
I revere this office, but I love my country more. It's been the honor of my life to serve as your president. But in the defense of democracy, which is at stake, I think it's more important than any title. I draw strength and I find joy in working for the American people. But this sacred task of perfecting our union is not about me, it's about you.
Whenever I think about Joe Biden dropping out, I think of this tweet that says, "You will always be remembered as the butcher of Gaza. May you never know peace for the rest of your days or life to come." That's honestly how I feel. I look at Joe Biden kind of like Henry Kissinger. I don't think he's a good person. I think he's an absolute war criminal. The day he dies, I do believe that a lot of Americans will be celebrating the same way that they celebrated when Henry Kissinger died. Sorry, he's not a very likable person.
I may have been there, but there wasn't a rousing or inspiring speech. Biden can't really do those anymore, and that's, of course, the big problem. The president visibly waned even during a modest 15-minute address to the American people. And Joe Biden did not pass the torch, as he put it, to Kamala Harris. He was torched out of office by donors and grandees who decided he couldn't win. Everybody else knows that. The former professional wrestler and Fox News contributor Tyrus and TikTok influencer Harry Sisson. Well, welcome to both of you. Harry, I want to start by playing a little clip of...
First of all, what a group of people. Moment of silence for this group of people. You have Piers Morgan, Harry Sisson, and this, I don't know if he's a WWE wrestler. I'm not really sure what kind of wrestler he is. This is a hilarious panel. Because first of all, look at how different these two's energy is. Harry is in a whole entire suit. This man is in a baseball cap and a polo shirt. But second of all, do you see their body language? The wrestler isn't even, his back is kind of turned to Harry. So I don't know if they don't fuck with each other off rip or what it is, but the wrestler doesn't even seem like he wants to be there. Wow, what a group. What a group.
Of you last time you appeared on my show. Who do you think the two nominees will be in the end, and who will win?
Yeah, it's going to be Joe Biden versus Donald Trump, and then Joe Biden's going to win. And Piers, I'd love to chat with you after the election.
You've made a few dollars, Harry, so why don't we have a little wager? $10,000 to a charity of your choice. I say Biden can't possibly win. You think he can?
I mean, I personally don't bet on politics. I'm happy to have another bet to do something with charity. We can do something, absolutely no problem.
But you wouldn't put your money where your mouth is on Biden then?
I don't bet on politics.
Welcome to back to Uncensored. I mean, you were completely wrong. Not only did Biden not stay in the race, but he certainly won't be.
He said, I mean, you were completely wrong. That is so funny. Here's the thing, though. Harry is very DNC aligned. He gets invited to all of the DNC events. He's met Biden multiple times. He gets invited to the White House on a regular basis. So there's no way Harry would ever say anything bad about Joe Biden, even if Joe Biden was getting wheeled into Congress like Dianne Feinstein with his check engine lights on. He wouldn't say anything because he's very DNC aligned. I've actually never seen Harry hold the Democrats accountable, like, ever. And so, you know, he's one of those types of people. That's his content.
You're president again, so do you accept you were completely wrong?
Yeah, I think I was going based off of publicly available information. All of the information available was that Joe Biden was staying in. He consistently told reporters he was staying in. He said, I'm the guy. And then he huddled with advisors in Delaware, saw the data, said it wasn't looking good, and made the honorable decision to bow out.
But with respect, why would a young, dynamic guy like you, how old are you?
21.
You're 21, so you're 60 years younger than Joe Biden.
That's right.
Right, it was blatantly obvious to everybody that Biden was done, especially after the debate. Why would you continue to pretend that he wasn't?
Because I look at the record, I'm always of the view that achievements and policy matters more than like this talk we have in the media of, oh, Biden's this, oh, Biden's that. I've met the man as well. I've talked to him. He was fantastic. He was sharp. I had questions.
When was that?
That was in May.
He was sharp?
Yeah.
How sharp?
Very sharp. He answered
around
my
that time
questions
he
in
was
full.
falling off stages. He was face planting. He was tumbling.
Face planting. I mean, I
tumbling
feel like
down the steps of Air Force One, falling off bicycles. He was saying all sorts.
One thing about Harry is he says he looks at policy and he looks at the facts, but he's not critical. And in my opinion, if you work in politics and you're not critical of the people or the groups that you say you support, you're not really doing them a favor. Because if you blindly support a group and you don't actually tell them, hey, you're fucking up in this area, they won't do anything to try to fix that area that they're fucking up in, right? I think this like blind vote blue no matter who bullshit maybe worked 20 years ago. I don't think it works now. So America is becoming way more diverse. We have a huge diversity of voters now. I mean, Michigan is basically influenced by a lot of the Middle Eastern and Arab people, Muslim people that are there. You know, other places are influenced by other things, but this blue, no matter who, we're only going to cater to white, black, and Latino voters. It's just not going to work anymore. And when the Democrats realize that, they'll understand that they can have multiple washes of wins if they cater to everyone in their demographic. But they only cater to certain specific demographics within their voting block. So they cater to black voters, they cater to Latino voters, or they say they do. I'm not saying they actually do a lot of things around it. I'm just saying this is like their campaigning. They cater to women voters. They say, oh, your body, your right. You know what I mean? They cater to the pro-abortion voters. So they have specific voters that they cater to. And never in that point have they catered to Muslim or Middle Eastern voters, even though Muslim and Middle Eastern voters tend to heavily lean Democrat when they vote, which is something that they also ignore. So I think people like Harry in the long run are a lot more detrimental to the Democrat Party because I think that they leave out the diversity and the inclusion that the Democrat Party needs. Now, I understand that speaking to Muslim and Middle Eastern voters is a bit taboo, right? It is taboo. I mean, if any president were to say, hey, Muslim people need this, that, and the third, and I'm going to do it, they're going to say, hey, you're a terrorist. Do I think socially we're there yet? Not necessarily, but this shift has to happen at some point if they want to win every single election cycle. And that's not just with Muslims, that's with every single voting demographic, right? They only tend to focus on specific voting blocks, and I personally don't agree with that. And I think people like that are going to be eventually more detrimental to the party than helpful, but that's just me.
Lots of gobbledygook in statements which the White House had to rewind. So how sharp was he?
I mean, he was great. I gave him questions he didn't have beforehand. He answered them in depth, and we had a conversation after the cameras were turned off. I had no problems then. I had no problems now. I still think Joe Biden is fit to serve. If he were the candidate, I'd still think he's fit to serve.
Really?
Yeah.
You know, what I was struck by, Harry, last night was he kept talking about, you know, the threat to democracy and the importance of honesty and integrity in public life and so on. But then he said this about passing the torch. Let's listen to this clip.
I've decided the best way forward is to pass the torch to a new generation. It's the best way to unite our nation.
No, I'm sorry, Harry. That was just a blatant lie. He didn't decide it was time to pass the torch only the day before he quit. He was absolutely gung-ho. I'm going to be running. I'm going to be president. I'm going to win 4 more years, blah, 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 blah. Even in the speech last night, he said he thinks he still has it in him to do another term of office. But that's not what happened. What happened was the Democrat grandees, Barack Obama, the Clintons, Chuck Schumer, Hollywood stars like George Clooney penning op-ed pieces in newspapers and so on, they all collaborated with the donors, as Tyra said, who yanked the money, to torch him. He was torched by his own side. That's what happened, isn't it?
I mean, I think it's a combination of things. I think that there was obviously concern among party elites, you might call them. I don't know if that's the word.
But there was a concern. There was a poll came out on Sunday morning saying he was 7 points down in Michigan.
Right.
As Frank Luntz said, one of the 3 crucial swing states. And at that point, bang, the rope was pulled, right?
But it's also it was also his decision. He could have stayed in the race and said, like, I'm the nominee. I got the votes. I won the primary. I'm going to get the delegates. I'm going to be the nominee. But he looked at the data and made the honorable decision, said, no, I'm not going to.
But is it that honorable to do it now? I mean,
That sounds great, but let's be honest. Nancy Pelosi walked in and said, we can do it
The easy way or the hard way?
The hard way was Article 25.
You know what it was like? Goodfellas, one of my favourite films, right? It's the scene where Joe Pesci thinks he's going to be the made man.
Yes.
Right? And the whole build-up, goes thing, and he goes in and they whack him, right? I think that's what happened with Joe Biden on Sunday.
I think to say that it's like, oh, it's not honorable because it's taking place now, I think is a little bit disingenuous.
Well,
I don't really know why we're having this conversation. I'm going to be completely honest with you, because I think it's like, why are we debating whether he wanted to willfully pass the torch or not? Why is this even a conversation? Do you see the wrestler's face? That's my face. Like, what? Why are we even talking? Like, there's so many other topics we can talk about. Why are we talking about this? Like, who gives a fuck if he wanted to give it up willingly or not? He gave it up. It's over. Let's move on.
Because the other two Democrat incumbent presidents since World War II who have resigned in election year and decided not to vote did it massively earlier in the process, did it at the start of the year, which gave their replacement the chance to really build proper momentum. By giving Kamala Harris only 4 months, it could end up being, we don't know yet, and she might well turn it around and she might win. So let's put that caveat there. But if she was to lose quite badly, you could look back at it and say that had he pulled out a lot earlier, it would have given her a better chance.
But I think we can both agree that the political circumstances back then with like a Lyndon Johnson was different than now, right? The reason it's happening now...
Well, not really. In his case, it was the
debate.
Vietnam War had made him very unpopular, so they thought he would lose. Right here, Joe Biden's physical and cognitive state made him increasingly unpopular. And despite all the achievements that people like you queue up to tell us he made, and I'm not disputing some of them are genuine achievements, but his approval rating's at 37%. I keep hearing this week, he's the greatest president of modern times. Why is he so unpopular then? Why is people not just literally, why are there not parades in the streets for the greatest president of all time? Well, it's 37% approval.
We know the reason. Historically, the American people will blame the commander-in-chief for things that are often out of their control. So inflation and gas prices, I think anybody who's honest will recognize that Joe Biden obviously didn't cause those things, that those things are global factors. Inflation spiked in Great Britain at the same time.
Donald Trump didn't cause all the financial problems in his final year, but it was the pandemic.
I agree, and I wouldn't blame him for that.
Democrats, Tyrus, from memory, queued up to blame him.
The first day he got in office and shut down the oil pipe, he hit the green light for Russia and China. He changed the dynamic of the oil. When he who controls the oil controls the way things go. So he made a lot of, but again, I don't believe that these policies were Joe Biden's. I believe that the real issue is that whether it was Kamala Harris or whomever made decisions and the president wasn't unable to. And we saw that. The debate is the reason why he's out. They pulled the money and they said enough.
I agree. I've been seeing a lot of political commentators and just TikTokers saying that the uncommitted vote was why Joe Biden pulled out, but I actually think it wasn't the uncommitted vote. And I'm saying that as an uncommitted voter myself. I believe that it was the debate that was the straw that broke the camel's back. I don't think it was anything else but the debate. And a lot of people were saying that he should not go on that debate. Everyone was saying no, he needs to go on that debate. And I don't know, maybe, I don't think it was a combination of both. I really don't think it was a combination of both, because if they wanted to, they would have. After those election results came in, it was months after those uncommitted election results came in that they drew Biden out. I think it was really just the debate, honestly.
Here's the part. Barack Obama, he is a constitutionalist to the 10th power. Like so he won't endorse. And I don't think his endorsement is based off, he doesn't think she can win, like those reports are. I think he doesn't like the way the process was. I think we're seeing a split.
There are reports today. So just before we came on air,
there's two reports, and you can have the same thought on the same thing. He can say he doesn't think she could win, and he can also endorse her.
Yeah, I think he will endorse. I mean, the idea that Barack Obama is not going to endorse
that speaks volumes.
A black woman
but I think because
who is
he's
the nominee.
But in defense of him, I think he's looking at, he doesn't like the process. I think he wanted an open debate.
And would that have been better for the Democrats, do you think?
I think it would have been better in terms of showing Kamala doing her own thing. Because the Republican side, we've made huge mistakes, and I thought it wasn't possible. I thought, after the assassination attempt, after the speech, but literally the VP pick didn't help. Talking about her as a woman, whether she has children or not, moronic and stupid. I don't know why the Republican Party politicians seem to think the answer to getting votes is telling women what and not to do with their body. That's stupid. Like, we had a 40-point lead.
Hang on, you're agreeing with each other.
I'm agreeing with what you're saying right now.
It's not hard. Like, listen, I'm not a tent guy. I'm too big for that shit. You know that. So I call balls and strikes. And we were sitting in a great position, and now No one's going to talk about the fact that Biden's policies weren't his, or investigating who was doing what and what was Jill's role and who's this role. Now we're going to be talking about Trump insulting a woman.
Yeah.
So you literally, all the work, we've got this huge lead. And if we just stuck to policy and deeds and let them call him a felon, and because Americans, when they call him that, they respond with what? They send more money.
I agree.
Insulted person.
This is my problem with American politics. This is my problem. And I may be biased because I'm Middle Eastern and I do care a lot about the Middle East. But I think when people who identify as American talk about politics, they completely leave out foreign policy. This conversation offered absolutely no nuance about the uncommitted votes, about how Michigan might swing, about how young voters are dissuaded due to what's going on in the Middle East. This is a very American-centric conversation. And this is the problem with American politics. It's always about me, 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 me. Yeah, what's happening in the Middle East is really bad, but my comfort, what I need is going to be stripped away. Therefore, I'm going to vote for X, Y, and Z. I think this conversation really highlights that because they're not acknowledging that a large majority of Democrat voters want a ceasefire, have been demanding for a ceasefire. This is well known across the board, and they're not bringing it up. They're not even talking about it. These conversations don't include the Middle East. They don't include foreign policy. And if it does include foreign policy, the only thing they'll bring up is Ukraine and Russia. It's just very frustrating. It's a very Eurocentric type of conversation.
Kamala Harris, let's take a look at this.
In this election, we each face a question. What kind of country do we want to live in? There are some people who think we should be a country of chaos, of fear, of hate. But us, we choose something different. We choose freedom.
You know, Harry, my mother, who's just turned 80, very youthful, glamorous 80, I might add, but she messaged me yesterday saying, what do you think of Kamala Harris? She seems to have added a lot of energy to this race, which I thought was a really interesting observation. Whether you like her, don't like her, agree with her, don't agree with her, there's unbelievable amount of new energy in this Democrat side of the race because she is 20 years younger than Biden, obviously on her game, she's smart, she's presentable, she's good on TV, she's galvanizing people, the money's pouring in and so on. Do you believe, though, that once that honeymoon period inevitably quietens down and there's a more forensic analysis of her record, do you worry that she is too far left in her record to actually avoid Trump stomping all over her politically?
Not at all. I think that the idea that she's just like this progressive liberal who only sides with progressives and doesn't reach across the aisle is nonsense. I mean, she's been part of the Biden administration.
She was rated more left than Bernie Sanders.
I mean, I think that if we actually look at the policy on an individual level, that's not the case. Bernie Sanders is like for Medicare for all. Kamala Harris has never endorsed such system. So I think we actually have to look at the policy, and that tells a different story. But her record is certainly not a progressive one in the sense that it's like a Bernie Sanders kind of policy. She was a district attorney, a prosecutor. She sent people to jail. She's definitionally in favor of the rule of law.
She also wanted to defund the police. That's not great.
She's never come out and said, let's defund the police.
She effectively did.
Well, effectively and saying are two different things.
OK, I mean, look, the other thing she was clearly billed as the immigration border czar,
right, well,
Taurus, which they're now trying to deny ever calling him, but it's a brilliant thing I saw. I think it was Newsbusters did it, or somebody did it. They did a mashup of all the people on the left saying, well, they never called her the border czar.
Right.
You have them all calling her the border czar. And that's been
gold.
A disaster.
That is gold, and that should be on every campaign ad with Republicans. But as soon as we stop talking about policy and get it, because Kamala's going to want a street fight, because Trump will beat her up in a street fight, and he will say all kinds of stuff that we'll be like, oh, that's hilarious, and independents will be like, oh, that's not okay.
Yes.
So they want a street fight.
I agree.
And if it's hard,
she's already goading it,
and she's hit me. It's not, let's go.
It really
Please
is.
hit me.
It literally
hit
is
me.
hands down.
I dare you. I dare you.
Come after a black woman if you want. Yeah,
because it's going to look bad. But if he doesn't take the bait like he did, he showed great restraint in the Biden debate. He could have attacked him. He went at him. He made the one comment, which I thought for him was he showed great restraint. He was compassionate even in the sense that he didn't go after him or make fun of him, which would have been a horrible mistake. And if he goes in a debate with Kamala and starts calling her dumb or even horrible women, it's going to be a mistake.
I think Trump knows exactly what he needs to do, and he's doing it. I mean, Donald Trump had an assassination attempt, and right after the assassination attempt, he thought, oh, let me put my fist up right now while the Secret Service is trying to take me away because I know that this picture is going to go viral. He thought that in the moment when someone was trying to assassinate him. So I think this time around, Donald Trump is being much more strategic than he usually is. And I think because he understands that the field now is different. When he was going against Hillary Clinton, he knew a lot of people didn't like Hillary Clinton. He knew that she's very unpopular. And he kind of played on to that. But when he went on this debate with Biden, he knew, he was like, let me not say much. Let me just show how Biden's health is declining. And that's all I'm going to need. And he was right. And it was a win. This is a man that has been historically unhinged, right? Is he the most tapered type of dude? No. He rambles. He doesn't know where to put his periods when he talks. He goes on tangents. I'm not denying that. But I'm just saying I think his strategy is different, and we're seeing that different strategy. And I think that it might actually work in his favor, but we'll see.
Policy. That's what the American people want to hear. We're tired of it, and you can't run one side's deceiving and not doing what they need to do.
Why are you shaking your head?
Because we win on policy. Like I want it to be a policy conversation.
I'll take that bet.
I agree. I think we're the party of pro-choice. We're the party of capping insulin at $35 a month. We're the party of fighting climate change. We're the party of investing in infrastructure. So I want a policy conversation.
When does that
Republicans
insulin kick in? Because I have a type 1 diabetic at home, and I'm still waiting
for seniors on Medicare.
35.
Well, Joe Biden's trying to, I guess it's going to be Kamala Harris as the nominee, wants to expand it to all Americans, not just seniors on Medicare. That's our agenda. I think
so her record is his record.
Well, they work together.
That's all you need, President Trump. Just run on the record.
I agree. Look at the largest investment in infrastructure since Eisenhower, largest investment in fighting climate change in world history. And as we mentioned, capping insulin at $35 a month for seniors on Medicare. If you want that to be her record, I'm there.
Yeah, none of that happened.
The climate change initiative that he passed actually gave fossil fuel companies and oil companies a lot more autonomy than they had before. He gave them a bunch of land. It was honestly not that great of a bill. I'm not gonna lie to you. It wasn't an amazing bill. Now, did it put money into different programs and stuff like that? For sure, but he had to it was like a trade-off. Like he did all of those initiatives, like he passed all of those initiatives, but just as equally, he gave autonomy and a lot more to fossil fuel companies and stuff as well, which I think they're very conveniently leaving out of this conversation.
Listen, can we all agree on one thing? This race just got a lot more interesting.
I think it got worse. We're going to see the worst in everybody. It's sad, yeah.
That is the fear, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because it's clear Kamala is going low deliberately, and the big question we probably all know the answer, is can Trump rise above it? And I'm not convinced he has that valve.
It's going to be difficult.
Guys, thank you very much. Good to talk to you both. Right. Well, I'm joined now by the host of Michael Knowles' show, Michael Knowles, Wajahat Ali from the Democracy-ish podcast, and the Republican spokeswoman, Elizabeth Pipko. Welcome to all of you. Elizabeth Pipko, let me start with you. How concerned are you that the mood music has moved from hero Trump survives assassin's bullet and polls are surging and there's no way he could possibly lose to old man Biden, to suddenly now all the talk is resurgent Democrats, younger nominee, galvanizing support in a way that Biden never could? You must be concerned as a party, aren't you?
I wouldn't say concerned. If I'm being honest, we all see the excitement behind Kamala Harris. We all know what it means to have a movement like this because we have our own, right? We know what it means when you can raise record amounts of donations. We know what it means when people come out in droves to your rallies. I don't think what she has compares to the movement behind Donald Trump, but I 100% agree it's a different race than it was against Joe Biden. At the same time, I was just watching your show with Harry and Tyrus, and I think everything Tyrus said remains true. We fight on policy and policy alone. The American people are not happy with the policies they've seen from this administration. Kamala Harris owns that record. She was a part of that ticket, a part of that administration, and on policy alone, we hands down will win this election.
Yeah, but if you go on policy alone, what about Project 2025? Like, if we're talking about, okay, if we go policy alone, we win this election, Project 2025 is very unpopular. They have a lot of very unpopular initiatives in Project 2025. A lot of Americans do not believe in abortion bans. A lot of Americans do not believe in abolishing the educational school system. You know, it goes against what a lot of Americans believe. And so if we're going to talk policy, if we talk about, okay, what did Joe Biden do versus Project 2025, I think the average person would take what Joe Biden did or didn't do over Project 2025. Now, this is not an endorsement. I'm still an uncommitted voter. I'm just a commentator, okay?
Donald Trump can call Joe Biden dumb as a rock or a lunatic, and nobody really cares. But the moment he starts saying it about Kamala Harris, even I'm wincing a bit. It's like, it's not a good look. It's kind of, for want of a better phrase, it's kind of ungentlemanly. And so his narrative and rhetoric has to change, doesn't it, Elizabeth? I mean, you wouldn't like being called dumb as a rock, would you?
I definitely would not, though it happens quite a bit. I won't lie to you. Look, I 100% agree. I think that the debate that we saw against Joe Biden has to be a very good starting point for the next 3 months, which we didn't expect to be the campaign that it will inevitably be now. I think Donald Trump proved that he's able to keep substance at the forefront of the debate, on the forefront of his mind. And I think, like you said, that is the only way to win this fight. The American people are sick of being as divided and as attacked as we constantly have been for the last 4 years. And I truly think the only way forward is to leave those attacks behind.
I don't understand what this new PR initiative is with Republicans, where they're like, oh, no more attacking, no more division, let's all come together. When Donald Trump's literal campaign has constantly been attacking people. That's what he does. That's what made him funny at times. It's his whole entire thing. So I don't really understand how she, as the RNC spokesperson, is like, oh, you know what? Yeah, stop attacking each other. We all need peace. That's how we're gonna win, when the Republicans' whole entire basis is attacking people. It's kind of redundant.
I certainly will never utter any words like that from my mouth. That's not what I believe in. That's not the America that I want. And I think the best foot forward is a strict policy debate. That's all that matters at this point. The American people know that they're not happy with the policies the Democrats have put forward. They want Donald Trump to be there to answer their questions and solve their problems. And that is, like you said, the only way that he's going to win this fight.
Before I turn to the other two for their response to this, have you had this conversation with Donald Trump? Have you said to him, dial it down with that kind of chat about Kamala Harris?
I personally have not. I can tell you he talks regularly with people around him, and he's also incredibly intuitive. He knows what kind of race this is. I believe him when he says he wants nothing but unity moving forward. I believe the assassination attempt changed him as a human. I believe he wants to win this race. I believe he wants to save this country and make it better. And I believe he knows the best way to do that. And I do believe we'll see a different...
Really, that's what we're going with? The assassination turned him into a different person? Or the assassination attempt, excuse me. Come on, be for real. I mean, listen, you guys know I give very fair commentary on both sides. I don't think that's a very fair thing to say. Donald Trump is always going to be Donald Trump. I don't think the assassination attempt would ever change him.
Donald Trump moving forward because he knows what he needs to do to win the race. And that is a calmer, more focused, more substantive debate and more substantive Donald Trump.
OK, let's go to the other two. Michael Knowles, there's no doubt the dynamic of this race has changed. Do you think it's going to change the result?
I don't think so. I don't think you're really seeing that in the polls. In the polls, Trump is still looking pretty good, especially in the swing states, and especially when you consider the distinction between the Electoral College and the popular vote. I think this is why you have some leading Democrats who are saying that they actually don't want to be the vice president. They don't want to be the running mate. They don't really want to challenge Kamala. And so there is some new energy. I totally agree with that. But Kamala has some major vulnerabilities here. As you pointed out, Piers, in the previous segment, Kamala was the most liberal member of the Senate when she was there. Your previous guest, Harry Sisson, said something that wasn't true. He said that she was not for Medicare for all. She was. You can see it on her Medium blog page from 2019, My Plan for Medicare for All. And she was far to the left on so many other issues.
I don't know if I don't think Kamala Harris is a progressive. I mean, even the idea of that is honestly preposterous.
Why is it?
Let's just play again the clip of him talking about whether he should be nice or not, because it's kind of relevant to this, about whether he feels he ought to change. Let's take a look.
You know, I was supposed to be nice. They say something happened to me when I got shot. I became nice. And when you're dealing with these people, they're very dangerous people. When you're dealing with them, you can't be too nice. You really can't be. So if you don't mind, I'm not going to be nice. Is that okay?
So, Elizabeth, does he want to change? I mean, he was almost mocking the idea that people were saying, oh, he's going to be going through a life-changing thing and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I can't believe they're really going through with that narrative. Honestly, it's a very fucking stupid strategy. I don't know who decided they should do that, but it's really just dumb as hell.
I've got to say, I spoke to him on Saturday. He didn't sound like he changed much to me. And I've known him nearly 20 years. But of course, he would argue that part of his appeal, why he's so popular again, when everyone thought he was dead and buried a year and a half ago, the reason he's back surging away in the polls, and in fact has never had a higher popularity number than he has today, is because he is authentic. He's true to himself. He is a bit of a badass. He does speak from, shoot from the hip when he talks, and he says a lot of stuff which, shocks people, makes people laugh. He's not the conventional politician. Is it actually politically wise for him to try and change and suddenly be Mr. Nice Guy, maybe holding babies and, cuddling cats?
I don't think we'll ever see him cuddling a cat. But I mean, look, the multiple things can be true at once. He could, like Michael said, realize he's talking to a woman at this debate and realize that he might have to change his strategy a little bit, but also realize that, like you said, he is a badass and that's why people love him. Everything that has been mentioned about him in these last 5 minutes was true.
I'm sorry, this debate is giving me the ick and I'm kind of over it. I do want to see what they say about Netanyahu though. But yeah, this shit was fucking boring. Come on, Piers, you gotta do better with these.
I want to change subject now, and I want to move to Benjamin Netanyahu's appearance yesterday in Congress. Wajah, we'll start with you here, because I can imagine you were probably not one of the people joining in the wild celebrations of people in Congress at Netanyahu's speech.
Yeah, I mean, this is the most unpopular leader in Israel. 72% of Israelis don't like him. The family members of the hostages, Israeli hostages, don't like him and protest to him. He is one of the most hated leaders in all the world, and he came to the United States of America, gaslit America, spent lies about America, tried to get American money for his failed war, tried to get America again to engage in another war on Israel's behalf, send U.S. troops and U.S. money to fight this war in Iran. And I think most people were horrified and disgusted by it. He lied about his track record, took zero responsibility for his failures in this war, his failure to bring back the hostages, lied, things that we've talked about on your show, Piers, for the past 10 months, the civilian casualties, the death of 40,000 people. He tried to minimize all of that. And look, the Republicans, like lapdogs, ate it up. They applauded him. I thought it was very shameful, especially as he mocked and ridiculed even U.S. citizens who are protesting. You could disagree with the protest, but he called them Hamas. Does that include the Jewish protesters? Does that include the family members of the hostages who flew here from Israel?
I mean, he also said they're all paid by Iran, which is ridiculous.
To protest him. And also, I want to remind people that Israel itself, Israel's top security intelligence officials, sent a letter to the United States asking U.S. Congress not to host Netanyahu because they said, not me, they said Netanyahu is an existential threat to Israel. Republicans lapped it up, gave him hooting and hollering, standing ovation. Shameful sight to see. Shameful sight to see.
OK, Michael Knowles, I mean, I've got to admit, I found it a little unpalatable, the scale of the kind of celebratory mood towards Netanyahu, given what has happened in this war since last October. I've always said Israel had an absolute fundamental right and duty to defend itself after the horrific terror attack of October the 7th. But the overwhelming scale has struck me as increasingly disproportionate, and there's no apparent plan for what happens to the people of Gaza at the end of all this. Most of Gaza has now been destroyed, and the ongoing deaths of innocent people continue unabated, while everyone is distracted by what's happening over here in America. I mean, there's a way to support someone who runs one of the great allies of America without looking like it was a celebration of the way that Israel has perpetrated the war, isn't there?
Certainly. I think part of the reason that especially Republicans in Congress were welcoming to Prime Minister Netanyahu is because so many leftists in America have reacted so violently even against the notion of Israeli self-defense and in favor of the pro-Palestine movement. So Wajahat mentions gaslighting. The only gaslighting I saw yesterday was the gaslighting on the American flags at Union Station when the pro-Palestine protesters lit it on fire. I think that kind of imagery is why so many Americans are willing to take Israel's side in this. And so I totally agree with you, Piers. I mean, Israel is its own country, and we have interests that overlap in some ways, and we have interests that...
Hold on. Okay, first of all, not true. Majority of Americans, Republicans, Independents, as well as Democrats, believe that we need a ceasefire by a larger than 50% majority. So this is why most of Americans decide to stand with Israel is completely false. Also, flag burning is legal. Oh wow, look. The Supreme Court ruled that flag burning in protest is protected free speech. So for the Republican Party to really champion this freedom of speech stuff, right? They're like, oh, I'm a freedom of speech absolutionist. Republicans believe in freedom of speech. For them to say they believe in freedom of speech, but then demonize people for doing something that the Supreme Court has literally ruled is protected under protected freedom of speech, it's a little funny to me. You know what I mean?
Diverge in some ways, and I don't think the American people want to go to war in Iran or pursue regime change in Iran or anything like that. But when Prime Minister Netanyahu says that there are Americans acting as useful idiots for Iran, and these are Americans who are in league with people who are burning the American flag, that raises a lot of eyebrows, and it's going to lead people to support the other side.
Yeah, Elizabeth, what was...
Yeah, maybe in 2001 that would have been true when people believed whatever horse shit Congress would feed them because social media wasn't a thing and they didn't have anywhere else to get their news from. But, babes, we're in 2024. Not a single fucking American wants to be... Well, let me take that back. Most of Americans don't want to be in Gaza. Most Americans don't want us to be in that war, whatever you want to call it. Most Americans want us to pull out by a majority. Not only that, we don't want wars. Wars are unpopular. Vietnam was unpopular. Iraq and Afghanistan were popular at the start, but then ended up being extremely unpopular. The war in Gaza is unpopular. We do not like war. We're not supporters of war. For anyone to sit here and say, you know what, Netanyahu's speech was convincing, you're either so out of touch that you're just dumb as hell, or you're getting paid to say that. Either way, you sound stupid.
What's your overview of yesterday? Because everyone has, again, a fundamental right to peacefully protest, but that should not extend to brazenly supporting Hamas, as some of those protesters were doing. And again, I ask you the same question. Did you feel entirely comfortable with the scale of the ovation that Netanyahu was getting yesterday?
It's interesting. I haven't thought about your second question. No one's asked me that. And when I watched, I didn't think about that. However, when you say it, if I'm being completely honest, I was uncomfortable with what I saw in Congress when they were waving Ukrainian flags and celebrating aid to Ukraine. So, yeah, I think I'm a little uncomfortable when I see anyone showing some kind of loyalty or excitement for a country when we have to focus on what's going on here. And when, like was mentioned, what happened in Israel, what's been going on for 9 months now has caused as much pain as it has. That being said, Benjamin Netanyahu is the democratically elected leader of one of our strongest and closest allies. And I think worse than the celebration, as you called it in Congress yesterday, was the fact that many elected officials were not there, the fact that Kamala Harris was not there, and the fact that Bibi Netanyahu had to stand there and applaud those that stand for the American flag while our own people outside were burning the American flag and screaming that Hamas is coming. So there's many things that we can say about yesterday. There's a lot going on, obviously, but I find it incredibly uncomfortable, incredibly sad, and appalling, if I'm being honest, to see the reaction to a leader of our ally in this country after everything that's going on and knowing full well that Americans are being held hostage right now as well. And a good relationship with Israel and with Bibi Netanyahu could ensure that those hostages come home. So I think it was inappropriate.
What does that even mean? We've been having a good relationship with him. The hostages haven't come home. Like, where is this idea or thought even coming from, number one? Number two, there have been multiple ceasefire deals that have been put in front of Netanyahu that would have brought all the hostages back in one piece. Netanyahu was the one that said, no, I don't want that. I want to continue the war after I get the hostages. And number 3, like I said, we have been having a very close relationship with Israel. That did not bring us the hostages back. So for them to ride and die a leader that is so unpopular in Israel, so unpopular globally, so unpopular in the US itself, shows us that they will blindly support Israel regardless of anything, regardless of his unpopularity, regardless of what he does or what he says. It's pretty sad, honestly.
At best, but disgraceful, honestly, at worst, if we're talking about everything that went on yesterday.
Donald Trump is obviously, he saw Benjamin Netanyahu. He's a big supporter of Israel. He did a lot of work in that region when he was president. As with all these things, Donald Trump makes it sound easy to fix the problem. But it's not easy, is it? I mean, Elizabeth, it's going to be an incredibly difficult and complex and probably very long-running issue to try and resolve what has happened in Israel and Gaza since the events of October the 7th.
I would only assume that it would be. Look, it can't be easy to fix anything that's gone on in our world or anything that's happened in the last 4 years of this Biden administration. However, I think Donald Trump's record speaks for itself.
Okay, you want to know what? I'm over it. I'm over this fucking conversation. My final thoughts about this debate: I thought it was really boring. The lineup was weird. I didn't really understand the lineup or the purpose of the lineup. I think what they said about Netanyahu was honestly very egregious and just an unpopular opinion. That's just not my opinion because I'm biased. That's statistically proven that what they were saying was unpopular. For example, saying that Netanyahu was convincing people. I don't know where that came from, or that it was egregious that most of the lawmakers weren't there. I don't get that. I don't really understand it. Also, I don't know why they were like Kamala Harris wasn't there. That's a shame when Kamala Harris literally uploaded a picture with Netanyahu. And Netanyahu was doing this really weird, creepy smirk in it. So I don't really get any of that. That's really all of my final thoughts with this debate. You know what? I'm going to end it on this. I think anyone that blindly support any institution, that includes Democrat and Republican, and does not hold the institution that they blindly support accountable, either fundamentally lacks the ability to, because they truly believe in the two-party system, or they know that their party is doing wrong, but they also don't really prioritize that enough. Like, they know that what they're doing in Gaza is wrong, but their own comfortability living in America triumphs what's going on in the Middle East or what kind of pain we're causing in foreign countries. And that's all I have to say about it. Make sure you subscribe for more videos like this, and I'll see you guys next time.